As time weaves its tapestry of years, old age should be a period of serenity, a time to reflect on cherished memories and bask in the tranquility earned through a life well lived. But for many, these golden years are overshadowed by an oppressive weight, relationships that sap joy, dim spirits, and leave the soul yearning for escape. Have you ever felt drained, criticized, or caught in a relentless cycle of negativity by those closest to you? If so, you are far from alone. The journey of life is intricate, and sometimes the greatest act of self-care is letting go, even when it's the hardest thing to do. There are individuals who, rather than nurturing your spirit, gradually erode your peace. Protecting yourself from these influences doesn't stem from selfishness, but from wisdom. For in recognizing the patterns of those who harm more than heal, you pave the way for peace, dignity, and fulfillment. Let's unravel the types of people who quietly weigh down the heart and soul, starting with those whose power lies in subtle but relentless manipulation. Manipulators often wear the mask of care, their words dripping with affection and concern, but beneath the surface they weave a web so fine it's nearly invisible. Their charm lies not in aggression, but in subtlety, making you believe their intentions are pure. They have a gift for reshaping your reality, making you question your actions, your choices, and even your own worth. They're the ones who say, "After all I've done for you, this is how you repay me," or "I don't know what I'll do without your help." These phrases are not casual remarks, but calculated arrows aimed to plant guilt and confusion deep within your soul. Imagine an elderly man, a father who spent decades supporting his family, now quietly tending to his garden, hoping for a peaceful retirement. But his adult son, despite having the means to stand on his own, frequently appears with stories of misfortune, needing financial help, emotional support, or even a place to stay. "You're the only one who understands me," the son says, his voice tinged with desperation. At first, the father obliges, seeing it as his duty. But as time passes, the demands grow, and the father's sense of freedom fades. Manipulators don't need force. They wield guilt like a sword, creating an invisible cage of obligation. What makes these individuals especially dangerous is not only the immediate emotional toll they take, but the long-term erosion of self-worth. Their words and actions leave scars that can take years to recognize and heal. Over time, their influence can convince you that your own needs are secondary, that your life exists only to accommodate theirs. Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once observed, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It is within this realization that the path to freedom begins. The first step in reclaiming your peace from manipulators is recognizing their behavior for what it is. Name it, label it. Understand that the guilt they impose is not your burden to carry, it is their tool of control. Saying no, setting boundaries, and protecting your own well-being are acts of courage, not cruelty. And though their protests may sting, they are temporary. Your peace, once reclaimed, is enduring. Equally as damaging are those whose words are steeped in relentless criticism. These constant critics are rarely loud or confrontational. Instead, their remarks are sharp needles, pricking your self-esteem in ways that are both subtle and profound. They magnify flaws while ignoring strengths, creating an endless loop of disapproval. You might hear them say, "You should have done better," or "If only you'd listened to me, things wouldn't be such a mess." Consider a mother whose grown daughter visits every week, not with warmth, but with a litany of grievances. "Why haven't you cleaned the house? Why don't you exercise more? You're not taking care of yourself." These words, though spoken under the guise of care, feel more like judgments. Over time, the mother begins to internalize these criticisms, believing she's failed in ways she cannot even articulate. This is the insidious power of constant criticism. It doesn't just hurt, it reshapes how you see yourself. The antidote to such negativity lies in drawing clear lines. Acknowledge that you are not defined by someone else's opinions. You have the right to demand respect, even from those closest to you. When faced with relentless criticism, calmly but firmly address it. "I hear what you're saying, but the way you're speaking hurts me," is a powerful statement that asserts your boundaries while opening the door to healthier communication. As life progresses, another kind of relationship emerges as a quiet thief of joy, the irresponsible. These are the individuals who avoid accountability, leaving you to clean up the messes they create. They may be friends, family, or even colleagues who consistently shift their burdens onto you. At first, their pleas for help might seem reasonable, but over time their dependence grows and their gratitude wanes, leaving you exhausted and unappreciated. Picture a retired woman who worked tirelessly throughout her career to build a modest savings. Her adult nephew, unemployed by choice rather than circumstance, frequently asks for loans, always promising to pay them back, but never following through. "Your family," he says, as though that simple fact absolves him of responsibility. The woman obliges, hoping her generosity will inspire change, but instead it only deepens his dependence. Irresponsible people don't just drain your finances, they sap your emotional energy and undermine your sense of security. The solution lies in setting firm boundaries. Recognize that helping someone doesn't mean enabling their irresponsibility. It's okay to say no. In fact, it's necessary. By refusing to bear their burdens, you give them the opportunity to grow and take responsibility for their own lives. Even more disheartening are those who fail to show gratitude. The ungrateful are not always outwardly hostile, but their indifference stings just as deeply. You pour your time, energy, and love into these relationships, only to be met with silence or, worse, entitlement. They take your kindness for granted, treating it as something owed rather than a gift freely given. Imagine spending years supporting a friend through difficult times, offering a listening ear, financial help, and emotional encouragement. But when your own hardships arise, they are nowhere to be found. Their absence speaks volumes, leaving you to wonder whether your efforts ever truly mattered. Ingratitude doesn't just hurt, it creates a ripple effect, making you hesitant to give again. But it's important to remember that your kindness is not diminished by someone else's inability to appreciate it. Value yourself enough to invest your energy in those who reciprocate with warmth and respect. And finally, we come to those whose negativity infects every corner of your life. Negative influences are not always easy to spot, as they often disguise their pessimism as practicality or concern. They complain about everything, from the weather to their job, and their words carry an undercurrent of hopelessness. Over time, their constant negativity begins to seep into your own outlook, clouding your perspective and dimming your joy. Recognizing these patterns is the first step to freedom. Surround yourself with people who uplift, inspire, and encourage you to grow. Your peace is too precious to sacrifice at the altar of someone else's discontent. Life is a tapestry of choices, and as you age, those choices become clearer. You have the right to prioritize your peace, to let go of relationships that weigh you down, and to embrace the serenity that comes with self-respect. In doing so, you'll find that old age is not a time of loss, but a time of profound discovery, a journey toward the light of a life lived on your own terms. The passage of time reveals not just the beauty of life, but also its complexities, especially when it comes to the relationships we carry with us. As you grow older, there's a clarity that emerges, a quiet understanding of what truly matters. This clarity, however, often comes at the cost of painful realizations about the people who surround you. Some relationships lift you, filling your days with love and laughter, while others weigh you down, draining your energy and eroding your peace. Among the most difficult to face are the manipulators, critics, and irresponsible individuals, but there's another category that demands attention: the ungrateful. Ingratitude is a silent thief. It doesn't arrive with loud declarations or dramatic betrayals, but slips quietly into your life, eroding your sense of worth, one dismissive moment at a time. It's the child who forgets to say thank you after years of sacrifice, the friend who vanishes after you've offered your unwavering support, or the colleague who takes credit for your work and offers no acknowledgement in return. These are not isolated incidents, they're patterns, and their impact is deeply felt. Imagine an elderly couple, Margaret and James, who spent their lives working hard to provide a comfortable home for their children. They supported their son through college, sacrificed vacations to help him buy his first car, and stood by him during the tough years of his early career. But now, as they grow older, their son's visits have dwindled. When he does come, it's out of obligation, not affection. He brushes off their attempts at conversation, always in a rush to leave, and never acknowledges the foundation they built for him. Margaret and James don't expect grand gestures or lavish displays of gratitude, but the absence of even a simple thank you leaves a void that no amount of rationalizing can fill. Ungrateful people operate in a way that's both subtle and devastating. They don't need to say anything overtly cruel. Their indifference does the damage. Over time, their lack of acknowledgement makes you question the worth of your efforts. You begin to wonder if you're asking for too much by hoping for appreciation, or if your kindness was misplaced all along. This erosion of self-worth is the quiet tragedy of ungrateful relationships. But here's the truth: their ingratitude is not a reflection of you. It's a mirror of their own inability to value what they've been given. The act of giving, whether it's love, time, or material support, is an expression of your values, not theirs. When someone fails to appreciate it, it doesn't diminish the worth of your kindness. It highlights their inability to see it. The Stoic philosophers understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." Life's beauty isn't tied to whether others recognize your efforts. It lies in your ability to give freely without being shackled by expectations. This doesn't mean you should accept ingratitude without boundaries. On the contrary, it's a call to protect your energy and choose carefully where and how you give. Setting boundaries with ungrateful people is an act of self-preservation. It's not about withholding kindness, but about ensuring that your kindness isn't taken for granted. Start by recognizing patterns of ingratitude. Does someone always expect your help, but never offer theirs? Do they dismiss your sacrifices as if they're insignificant? Once you identify these behaviors, give yourself permission to step back. You are not obligated to pour your energy into relationships that don't nourish your soul. Consider Joan, an elderly woman who spent years taking care of her younger sister, Alice. Joan helped Alice through multiple financial crises, often dipping into her own modest savings to keep Alice afloat. But Alice never expressed gratitude. Instead, she acted as though Joan's help was her right. One day, Joan decided enough was enough. She told Alice, calmly but firmly, that she could no longer offer financial support. Alice reacted with anger, but Joan stood her ground. For the first time in years, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She realized that her worth wasn't tied to Alice's appreciation or lack thereof. Ingratitude can leave deep scars, but it doesn't have to define your relationships or your sense of self. By choosing to surround yourself with people who uplift you and by valuing your own peace, you reclaim the joy that life has to offer. Remember, the act of giving is its own reward, but it's also your right to decide where and when to give. Your kindness is a treasure. Invest it wisely, and don't let the ungrateful diminish its value. There's a unique weight that comes with unacknowledged effort, a heaviness that sinks deeper the more you try to carry it. It's the kind of weight that makes you question not just the relationships around you, but even your own worth. And while the ungrateful can leave you feeling invisible, the impact of their indifference is amplified when paired with another dangerous type of influence, those who thrive on negativity. Negativity, unlike other toxic traits, has a peculiar ability to spread like wildfire. It's subtle at first, a complaint here, a criticism there, but over time it seeps into your mindset, coloring how you see the world. People steeped in negativity often don't appear malicious. They might even seem like they're just venting or being realistic. But their perpetual doom and gloom outlook becomes a shadow over your life, dimming the light of your own optimism and joy. Picture this. An elderly man, Robert, once a cheerful soul, loved to spend his mornings sipping tea in his garden. His neighbor George would often join him for these quiet moments. At first, George's stories about his troubles seemed like harmless conversations, complaints about his health, frustrations about his children, grievances about the state of the world. Robert, ever compassionate, would listen attentively, offering words of comfort and advice. But as time went on, Robert noticed a shift in his own demeanor. His once peaceful mornings now felt heavy, clouded by George's endless negativity. The tea didn't taste as sweet, the flowers didn't seem as vibrant, and even the chirping birds sounded less cheerful. Robert's life, once filled with simple joys, was slowly being overshadowed by George's dark cloud. This is the insidious nature of negativity. It doesn't just stay with the person expressing it. It spills over, seeping into the lives of those around them. It's not just about what's being said, it's about how it makes you feel. Negative people have a way of pulling you into their vortex of despair, where every silver lining has a dark cloud, and every solution has a problem. They thrive on highlighting what's wrong, often overlooking or dismissing what's right. The effects of prolonged exposure to negativity are far-reaching. It starts small. You begin to echo their complaints, adopting their phrases and seeing the world through their critical lens. But over time, it changes you in deeper ways. You might start to avoid pursuing your own dreams, fearing the criticism or doubt they'll inevitably cast. You may find yourself second-guessing decisions, wondering if you're being naive or unrealistic. Their negativity doesn't just dampen your mood, it alters your perspective, shaping a world that feels smaller, darker, and less hopeful. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher, wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." This wisdom reminds us that the company we keep directly impacts the quality of our inner world. Spending too much time with negative people stains your soul, dulling its natural vibrancy. And the longer you stay in their orbit, the harder it becomes to reclaim your original color. Negativity is not always loud or obvious. Some people express it through subtle remarks that seem harmless at first glance, but carry a deeper weight. Imagine sharing a personal achievement with someone only to hear, "That's great, but don't get too comfortable. Things could fall apart." Or you might mention a new goal, and their response is, "At your age? Are you sure that's a good idea?" These comments might be wrapped in a guise of concern or realism, but they are seeds of doubt planted deliberately or unconsciously. To protect yourself from the grip of negativity, you first need to recognize it for what it is. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with certain people. Do you leave conversations feeling drained, discouraged, or diminished? Do their words linger in your mind, reshaping your thoughts and dampening your enthusiasm? If so, it's a sign that their negativity is taking root in your life. Once you've identified negative influences, the next step is setting boundaries. This doesn't mean cutting people off entirely, although in some cases that may be necessary, but it does mean limiting their access to your time and energy. If someone's negativity consistently affects your mood, reduce the frequency or duration of your interactions. Politely redirect conversations away from their complaints or criticism, and don't be afraid to excuse yourself when the negativity becomes overwhelming. Robert, the elderly man with the garden, eventually decided to take control of his mornings again. The next time George came over with his usual string of complaints, Robert gently but firmly steered the conversation. "George," he said, "I understand life can be tough, but this garden is my sanctuary, and I like to keep it a place of peace. Let's talk about something positive today." George was taken aback, but he respected Robert's wishes. Over time, their conversations became less heavy, and Robert regained the joy he once found in his mornings. Surrounding yourself with positivity is another crucial step in countering negativity. Seek out people who inspire and uplift you, whose words and actions remind you of the beauty and potential in life. These individuals don't have to be eternal optimists, but their energy should leave you feeling hopeful rather than drained. They might be old friends, new acquaintances, or even role models you admire from afar. The key is to fill your life with voices that encourage growth, resilience, and gratitude. It's also important to cultivate positivity within yourself. Gratitude is a powerful antidote to negativity, both internal and external. Start a daily practice of reflecting on the things you're thankful for, no matter how small they may seem. This habit shifts your focus from what's wrong to what's right, strengthening your ability to see the silver linings even in challenging situations. Negativity, when left unchecked, has the potential to rob you of your peace, your joy, and your sense of purpose. But it doesn't have to define your reality. By recognizing its influence, setting boundaries, and surrounding yourself with positive energy, you can protect your inner world and preserve the light within you. Life, especially in its later years, is too precious to spend weighed down by the shadows of others. Choose to embrace the warmth of optimism, the power of gratitude, and the freedom of a mind unburdened by negativity. In doing so, you'll create a sanctuary of peace within yourself, a place where no external darkness can reach. Life, especially in its later chapters, is a delicate balance, a time when peace and contentment should take precedence. Yet, there are certain relationships that, if left unchecked, can turn this cherished time into a prolonged struggle. Among the most draining are those who live irresponsibly, placing their burdens squarely on your shoulders, and in doing so, robbing you of your precious energy and tranquility. Irresponsibility comes in many forms, but its impact is always the same. It leaves you feeling used, overwhelmed, and questioning why you've allowed this weight to settle on your back. The irresponsibility of others is not always immediately apparent. It can disguise itself as helplessness, charm, or even love, drawing you in with a sense of obligation or guilt. But over time, the pattern emerges. You are left to clean up their messes, take on their problems, and carry their loads, often at great personal cost. Imagine Clara, a retired teacher who had looked forward to a quiet, peaceful life after decades of dedicating herself to her students. Her youngest son, Alex, in his mid-30s, had never quite managed to find his footing. He bounced from job to job, spent more than he earned, and always seemed to be in the midst of a crisis. "Mum, I just need a little help this month," he would say, or, "I promise, this is the last time." Clara, with her generous heart, would dip into her savings, assuring herself that she was simply being a good mother. But the months turned into years, and Alex's crises never ceased. Instead of enjoying her well-deserved retirement, Clara found herself financially and emotionally drained, constantly worrying about her son's next call for help. Irresponsible people like Alex don't necessarily intend to be harmful, but their lack of accountability creates a ripple effect that impacts everyone around them. They rely on others to pick up the slack for their poor decisions or inability to take control of their lives. What makes this dynamic particularly dangerous is that it often takes root in relationships where love and loyalty run deep. Parents, siblings, or close friends may feel a moral obligation to step in, believing that their support is necessary even when it comes at the expense of their own well-being. The trap lies in the belief that helping an irresponsible person will eventually lead to change. But irresponsibility is not solved by enabling, it is solved by consequences. When you continuously shield someone from the fallout of their actions, you unintentionally reinforce their behavior. They come to expect rescue, learning that they don't need to change because someone else will always clean up the mess. Setting boundaries with irresponsible individuals is one of the most challenging but necessary steps you can take. It requires you to prioritize your own needs and recognize that your well-being is not selfish, but essential. Clara eventually came to this realization. After years of supporting Alex, she had an honest conversation with him. "I love you, Alex, but I can't continue to bail you out," she said. "You need to take responsibility for your own life. I'll always be here to offer advice or emotional support, but I can't fix your problems for you anymore." Alex, predictably, didn't take it well at first. He accused her of abandoning him, of not caring enough, of being selfish. But Clara stood firm, knowing that continuing to enable him would only harm them both in the long run. Over time, Alex began to adjust. He learned to manage his finances better, found a stable job, and started to take responsibility for his choices. It wasn't an easy journey, but it was a necessary one, and it wouldn't have happened if Clara hadn't drawn the line. Establishing boundaries with irresponsible people isn't about cutting them off entirely, though that may be necessary in some cases. It's about creating a healthier dynamic where they are encouraged to take ownership of their lives. This may mean refusing financial support, limiting the time you spend listening to their complaints, or stepping back from solving their problems. It's not about punishment, it's about fostering growth, for both of you. Stoic philosophy provides valuable insight here. As Epictetus once said, "You are a distinct portion of the essence of God and contain a part of him in yourself. Why then are you ignorant of your noble birth?" This reminder calls us to recognize our own worth and to treat ourselves with the same care and respect we extend to others. When you allow irresponsible people to drain your resources and energy, you are neglecting that noble part of yourself. Setting boundaries is a way of honoring your own value. One of the hardest parts of dealing with irresponsibility is overcoming the guilt that often accompanies it. Society, culture, and even our own internal narratives can make us feel like we are abandoning someone by refusing to help. But true help is not about doing for others what they should do for themselves. It's about empowering them to grow. This distinction is critical and liberating. Take Paul, for instance, a retired grandfather whose adult daughter relied heavily on him for childcare, even for non-essential reasons. Paul loved his grandchildren, but found himself exhausted, sacrificing his own plans and time to meet his daughter's endless demands. When he finally spoke up, setting limits on when and how he could help, his daughter initially resisted. But over time, she adapted, finding other solutions and realizing that her father's time was valuable too. Paul, in turn, reclaimed the freedom he had thought he lost, discovering that he could still be a loving father and grandfather without sacrificing his own happiness. The journey of setting boundaries with irresponsible individuals is not without challenges. There will be resistance, backlash, and moments of doubt. But it is a journey worth taking, not only for your own peace of mind, but for the growth of the person you're setting boundaries with. Responsibility is a gift we give ourselves, and by refusing to carry the burdens of others, we allow them the chance to embrace their own. Life in its later years should be a time of reflection, joy, and fulfillment. It's a time to focus on the relationships and activities that bring you genuine happiness, rather than those that drain you. By letting go of the weight of irresponsibility, by setting boundaries, reclaiming your time, and honoring your own worth, you create space for peace to flourish. And in that peace, you find the freedom to truly live. As life progresses and the years accumulate like chapters in a cherished book, the need for peace and fulfillment becomes paramount. Yet, even in the pursuit of serenity, there remains one last type of relationship that can erode your happiness and diminish your sense of purpose, those rooted in toxic dependency. These relationships are marked by imbalance, where one person's reliance overshadows mutual respect and growth. Dependency, in its healthiest form, is natural and even beautiful. It's the foundation of support, trust, and shared strength in families, friendships, and partnerships. But when dependency becomes toxic, it turns into a one-sided arrangement where one person takes far more than they give, creating an emotional drain that leaves the other feeling suffocated and depleted. Imagine Eleanor, a widow in her 70s, who spent years caring for her husband through his illness. After his passing, she looked forward to rediscovering herself, pursuing hobbies, and savoring moments of tranquility. But her adult daughter, Anna, had other plans. A single mother with 2 young children, Anna relied on Eleanor for constant childcare, financial assistance, and emotional support. "You're the only one I can count on, Mom," Anna would say whenever Eleanor tried to set boundaries. Though Eleanor loved her daughter and grandchildren deeply, she began to feel trapped, her own needs eclipsed by Anna's relentless demands. Toxic dependency thrives in relationships where guilt, obligation, or fear of conflict prevents one person from saying no. It's fueled by unspoken expectations, where one individual becomes the default problem solver, caretaker, or provider for the other. Over time, this dynamic can strip away the joy and autonomy of the person being leaned on, leaving them feeling used and unappreciated. What makes toxic dependency particularly harmful is that it often masquerades as love. The dependent person may claim they cannot function without you, appealing to your compassion and loyalty. They may even truly believe this themselves, making it all the more difficult to disentangle yourself from the cycle. But true love and care are not about surrendering your well-being to meet someone else's endless needs. Real love respects boundaries and encourages mutual growth. Breaking free from toxic dependency requires courage and clarity. The first step is recognizing the imbalance. Ask yourself, do you feel exhausted after interacting with this person? Do you find that your own needs are consistently pushed aside to accommodate theirs? Are their expectations of you reasonable, or do they overstep the boundaries of what is fair and healthy? Once you've identified the pattern, the next step is communication. This is often the hardest part, especially when the dependent person is someone you care about deeply. But setting boundaries doesn't mean cutting ties. It means redefining the relationship in a way that honors both of your needs. For Eleanor, this meant having a heartfelt conversation with Anna. "I love helping you and the kids," she said, "but I need time for myself too. I'll always be here for you, but I can't do everything. Let's figure out how we can make this work for both of us." To Eleanor's surprise, Anna eventually understood. While the transition wasn't without its struggles, Anna began seeking additional support elsewhere, allowing Eleanor to reclaim her independence and find joy in her own pursuits again. This is the power of setting boundaries. It creates space for healthier, more sustainable relationships, while also prioritizing your own well-being. Stoic wisdom offers invaluable guidance in navigating such challenges. As Epictetus once said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." You cannot control another person's feelings or reactions, but you can control your own choices. By recognizing your limits and asserting them firmly but kindly, you empower yourself to live authentically and without regret. It's also essential to build a support system of your own. Toxic dependency can leave you feeling isolated, as though the relationship consumes all your energy and leaves little room for anything else. Surround yourself with people who uplift and respect you, who value your time and efforts without demanding more than you can give. These are the relationships that nourish your soul and remind you of the beauty in genuine connection. Finally, remember that it's okay to prioritize yourself. Old age is not a time to carry unnecessary burdens or sacrifice your peace for the sake of others' comfort. It's a time to embrace the life you've built, to explore new passions, and to cherish moments of quiet joy. Protecting your peace is not an act of selfishness. It's an act of self-love, and it's one of the most important gifts you can give yourself. As you let go of relationships that drain you, something remarkable happens. You create space for freedom, growth, and happiness. You begin to see life not as a series of obligations, but as an opportunity to savor the moments that matter most. Toxic dependency, like all forms of imbalance, can only hold power over you if you allow it. By reclaiming your boundaries and choosing peace, you take the first steps toward a life that is truly your own. In the end, life is not about how much you've given to others, but about how much you've cherished the time you've been given. Letting go of toxic relationships, whether they're rooted in dependency, negativity, or ingratitude, is not just an act of self-preservation, it's an affirmation of your worth. You deserve to spend your days surrounded by love, respect, and joy. And as you embrace this truth, you'll find that the most meaningful relationships are those that lift you higher, allowing you to live fully and freely in the light of your own peace.